Mr. O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, I'd first like to thank you and those who serve and have served under you, including the Bulldog Brigade from Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, for the incredible job that you are doing and have done in Afghanistan. And I join my colleagues in just thanking you for this terrific performance, which goes beyond any claims that someone could make or anecdote, but actually by the numbers and by the pictures and what we can see and what my colleagues were able to see in their recent visit. And I agree with many of the comments made so far that I think there are many lessons that we can apply from your success, this country's success in Afghanistan, to our operations and objectives in Iraq. When it comes to the proposed AUMF that we're considering to combat ISIS, my understanding that the immediate goal is to stop ISIS and ultimately to degrade, defeat, and destroy ISIS. What is our goal in Afghanistan relative to the Taliban?
Sure, thanks. And I really do believe that, again, on the AUMF, I have to look at that harder and look forward to other questions and maybe a closed session, and we can talk through that on the resources that we have to be able to do that. So on the Taliban piece, what I would tell you is our goal really is to build the Afghan capacity both in their police and in their army to be able to have a secure, stable Afghanistan for the future. And the Taliban and their message, you know, is not having any traction with the Afghan people. And as I said in my opening comments, it really is time now for the Afghan Taliban to take a look at what they're trying to do and become part of the political process. President Ghani in his inauguration speech opened the door there for them to come back and really work hard on reconciliation, which could potentially be a game changer down the road. But you know, that has to work with Pakistan and where they go and where Afghanistan as they continue to build their Afghan security force capability. But I do believe that, you know, they want to get the Taliban to where they are part of the Afghan vision moving forward, and killing other Afghans is not part of that vision. And so they have to operate from a position of strength, and I think 352,000 Afghan security forces and another 30,000 Afghan local police give them that capability. And the Taliban now are looking around and saying, you know, the coalition forces, they've signed a BSA, a SOFA, they're going to continue to help and provide, train, assist, and advise. You know, what we've been trying to do here for the last, we got to cut this out, we got to come in. And so I think that's really where we're going with the Taliban, but it is because the Afghan security forces are going to drive this, not the coalition.
And to that point, I think we're seeing record casualties and losses from the Afghan security forces, and thankfully, and much to do, I think, with your leadership and the service of our men and women on the ground, diminished casualties from coalition forces. You have, or military commanders have asked for additional flexibility, something that I think makes a lot of sense and fully endorse, given the lessons that we learned from Iraq and are learning from Iraq. I'm assuming that flexibility includes the ability for airstrikes, raids against terrorists and those who seek to do us harm. What status, and to the degree that you can offer clarity in this, what will you have to see on the ground in that country to recommend that we no longer need that flexibility and that we can meet our, it was going to be in 2016, our goal of having normal embassy level of protection? Again, through numbers or as clearly as you can, describe what that condition will have to look like for you to make that recommendation.
Sure, thanks for the question. If I could address the casualty piece first and just tell you that, as I talked about in the opening statement, 5 to 7% probably larger or more increase than 2013. But again, if you put it in context, it is about the operational tempo that both the police and the Army had, 4 times greater than they had in 2013. And again, 100,000 coalition were not out there. And so it was expected that casualties would rise. And, you know, one casualty is too much. But what we continue to focus on are 2 things. One is continue to improve the Afghan capability to reduce the diet of wounds and work on their CASEVAC, their medevac, their doctors, their combat medics, or lifesaver capability. So we're working that all very hard. That continues to progress. And then also the recruiting piece. They've got that much better. They don't recruit all year round like all of our services do. They kind of stop during the summer and the fighting season. Now they've got processes in place to do it kind of year round, and so it doesn't ebb and flow like that. And really the casualty piece is not really from the attrition rate is not just based on the casualties. In fact, the number one reason is leadership and making sure they have the right leadership as opposed to combat casualties. So what it would take for me really, I think, to recommend that we would continue to transition and work a glide slope differently would to make sure that the seams and the gaps that we've identified for a very long time that we need to continue to work on the Afghan security forces and on their ministries, that we've gotten them to a level that they could have the processes that they need without us. So the areas of aviation, we continue to build up their aviation capability. Their close air support, the first thing I always get asked for is close air support. Well, we're building their close air support. And so when I get a request that says, hey, can you fly close air support, I've asked them first, do you have a quick reaction force out there? Have you fired your mortars? Have you fired your artillery? Have you taken your Mi-17s that have forward-firing machine guns on them? You have a few Mi-35s. Have you used those? So we try to get all those out there to make sure they're working through those processes. We are working MD-530, which is a little bird helicopter that has 250 cal machine guns on the sides. We'll continue to work that. They won't have much for the next fighting season, but that will continue to develop. And we're working on a fixed wing capability that provides them close air support in the future as well, an A-29 Super Toscano. So that'll continue to grow. But once we get the aviation support, once we get their intelligence, once we work on their sustainment, once we continue to build their special forces capability, I'd feel much better as we close the gap on those seams that we had out there.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr.